Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. This one I call it Life Only Removes Obstacles. What do I mean by that? When there's a desire for truth, the recognition that I am, because that is what is always, well, everything that is an attachment, things that we value, that we believe are important because only fuels the belief that I'm a separate entity, seems to be removed from our lives. And that is only an opportunity to see from direct experience that none of the attachments, psychological attachments that we seem to have, can have an effect on the peace, on the happiness that we are. Generally speaking, when there's a search for, call it enlightenment, awakening, or some sort of a spiritual experience, there's a tendency, first of all, of thinking that these things, they feel differently than any experience that I may be having. And of course, they are also fuel the belief that there's a seeker, that there's a me who is chasing a particular experience, you see, consequently judging my life experience as it is. The way I came to this realization, remember, when I use the word I came to a realization, it's not that me, the individual, came to any realization, but within the context that we're speaking here, it was actually in the most painful experiences. What I mean by that is, I remember one day I was having a lot of, I guess it was intestinal pain or so, and I would go to the bathroom, and it was very painful, and then I would come, sit in bed, I lay in bed, it was late at night, and I would lay in bed, and I was in the midst of all that pain, and I could feel the pain. You see, the pain was, it was there, but somehow I was breathing through it, and I could sense, I don't know, a sense of gratitude, not for the pain, of course, but because I was just experiencing it, and I surrendered to the pain. I was like, okay, this is what is. I was just being with it. And in that moment, although I was in pain, I was at peace. And that's when something clicked. It was like, oh, so this is it. This is life, you see? And in that moment, it was like, so this is the simplicity of living life without the identification of the concept of an I who thinks that things should be any different. Because I was completely surrendered to the moment, to the present experience. And I could see how the pain eventually subsides. See, I wasn't doing anything to make the pain go away. Don't get me wrong, in some situations, if there's something that can be done, well, then they will be done. But they're not done by me anyway. They're just how life unfolds through whoever is experiencing the pain, right? In my case, the way it was dealt with is I found myself in bed, laying on the side, breathing it, and just be with it, you see? And then the pain was gone. I woke up the next morning and life continued. But there was no difference between life in the morning free of pain and life at night with the pain, because I am life, you see? And that's when it became very obvious that there's nothing to seek, there's nothing to look for, there's nothing to change, because life is expressing itself in each moment. So when we truly want to experience, which is something we're going to put to the test later on in this video, because I do it in every video, but when we want the experience of of beingness, of knowing that we are that famous peace that passes all understanding, well, life has to show the attachments, because all the attachments is what the mind uses, or what we use, to derive a sense of identity. This is mine, this is who I am feel better because I have this. When I ask people why they're happy, when they answer the question, it's a suggestion that maybe they are not happy. Because if my happiness is dependent on a particular experience or a particular object, or whatever the case may be, then it's conditioned to that. And if I don't have that experience, or if I don't have that object, where is my happiness? You see? And we're pointing here to the happiness that you are, in which you're resting in. So when there's this desire for truth, sometimes we see how things are taken away, even friendships wither away, not because we have anything against them, but because we cannot relate anymore. We cannot relate to a world that thinks in a particular conditioned way, when we could see through the veil of it and realize, oh my God, I simply am. That's why the second book, I think it was the second or the third book that it was written, called You're Not Crazy, Just Healing. You know, that's what happens. We are in a madhouse, universal madhouse, where people think according to certain condition, a collective condition, right? And that could happen also in specific groups within the madhouse. And when you're beginning to see through the veil of the illusion, you can no longer relate to others. And when I cannot relate to them, I don't see a reason why being with them. However, when you still remembering the nature of what you are, well, life will present you those who somehow are escaping from the madhouse. So it's not you're going to be lonely or alone, even though when you know who you are, you're not afraid of being alone, because you can never be alone. You are simply being, observing the play. You're no longer believing the illusion. You're seeing it for what it is. And the people who you interact with, you still can relate with them, but you do it in a different way. It's very interesting. It's not that all of a sudden you leave your family aside and you go to a cave, or you leave your friends and everything. No, you don't have to worry about any of that. You don't need to do any of that. Life itself will remove any obstacle that somehow is no longer consistent with the true desire for truth. You know, that's all that there is to it. Sometimes relationships may collapse. Sometimes jobs may fall apart. Sometimes health issues may come into play. But now you're resting in this recognition that you are, and then the health issue is attended, but it's not a distraction. A relationship may fall apart, but it won't distract you from the fact that you are. A job, a career may fall away, and again, at the beginning, the mind, which is interpreting that, it feels the consequence of its own interpretation, not from the things that are happening. A breakup of a relationship is not a cause for pain. It's just simply two people who were together and now they are not. But the mind's interpretation is the cause of all the pain, you see. But the interpretation, it comes as a result of the belief that I'm a separate entity, and the interpretation pertains to the identity, not to the self. The self doesn't interpret. The self simply is, and you are the self. We're pointing to the fact that you are the self, and that's it. And when you truly want freedom, the real freedom is basically the freedom from all the concepts, so you can experience what you are, which is beyond words, which is beyond concepts. You see, we cannot talk about what you are, but we can point to it. Let me give you this analogy first, and then we'll do the exercise. Imagine, maybe you have seen this before, but if you haven't, I'll tell you. Imagine someone in a prison cell, and he's praying for a hammer. Oh, Paul, give me a hammer, a big hammer, you know. And then all of a sudden, magically, like a miracle, a hammer appears in its cell. And the man begins to hammer away the wall, hammering away, and he opens a hole. You see? Meaning that he could literally walk through the hole and he is free. He escaped from the cell, right? But you know what he wanted the hammer for? He wanted to open a hole so he can put an air conditioning so he can rest more comfortable in his cell. You see? That's exactly what happens when we try to hold on to things in order to feel more comfortable as a human being, which is perfectly fine. If you can feel more comfortable, why not? But again, that is not something you do. That'll happen through you organically. The system, it's already conditioned to take care of itself somehow. But what I'm pointing to is that when you truly want freedom, you see, the mind is trying to sell you an air conditioning. You see, it's trying to tell you, no, do this, change this, do whatever you need to do to keep holding on to the sense of identity. And if I cannot do it through pleasure, I'll do it through pain. I'll find a way to distract you. If you're undoing this false sense of identity, maybe a relationship is a breakup there, but all of a sudden the mind projects another candy, oh, there's another one. This one is the one who's going to do it, you see. Oh, this one wasn't, but this one will, And then you find out later on that it was just another trap, you see. Same with everything, the health issue. The health issue now, when the health is fine, oh my God, I'm so happy because I'm healthy. But then if you're not healthy, what happens? You see? And I went through that when I had the operation and everything. I went through all those experiences and I realized that's what I said. The click was, oh my God, the ordinary of life is that happiness has nothing to do with what happens with the body, with the person, with the circumstances, with anything. Happiness is the place in which I rest for the fact that I am. You see? And things will change constantly. Life is a constant change, but I remain, you see? That's what we're pointing to here. We're pointing to the fact that you are, not to the details or specifics of the dream, As a matter of fact, going back to the analogy of the prison in a cell, let's say that you're watching this video and you happen to be in a prison cell. The invitation here is that the cell is not in the physical world, it's in the mind. Many people could be in a jail cell free because somehow they've been stripped from all the distractions that they seem to have in the physical world, and now they get to go inward and discover the vastness of what they are, which is something that words cannot describe. That once they discover that, you could ask them, would you like to be out of the cell? And they would say, it makes no difference. So most people who are outside a prison cell are imprisoned by their own mind, you see. And there's people who are in prison cells that are free because they're free from the prison of the mind. These videos are pointing to the happiness, the peace that you are right now for simply knowing who you are. And as the exercise, which I promise, again, I've done it in every video, but if this is the first video you have watched, let's do the exercise just to show you that you are happy right now, no matter what, and you are always happy. And by the way, happiness, peace, synonymous. Happiness, most people equate it with pleasure. That is not happiness. That is a temporary sensation that happens as a consequence of something that, of course, everything here is temporary. But we're talking about the permanency of what you are. So right now, even if you're dealing with a physical pain or a very difficult situation, which again, psychological situations are mind stuff. Physical pain could be felt, and I know this could be very difficult if you're dealing with a lot of pain. But even within that, let's just explore, just to see this as a possibility. I am respecting whatever the situation that you're going through may be. I am not here trying to sell you some kind of spiritual band-aid or anything. No. This is something that you can take, you can experience, as long as there's a true desire for it. And again, don't worry, the desire is not something that you create. It'll happen through you if it's meant for you, because again, you're not the doer. But if life have you listening to this information, well, we could say that life somehow through you, through me, through whoever is listening to this information, whether it comes from me or from somebody else, now is beginning to discover the nature of his beingness. You see, it's uncovering the vastness of the love, the peace, the joy, the happiness that you are. So let's put this exercise into practice, okay? Right now, I'm going to ask you To simply, you don't need to close your eyes because I don't want to make this into any kind of a practice. But if you feel that, you can do it. It doesn't matter. So right now, I want you to simply be with what is, and don't identify with anything the mind is trying to tell you about your present experience. It doesn't matter. You're simply being, okay? You're simply being right now, right this moment. Life is. Whatever thoughts the mind's trying to come up with, look what could happen in the future, but if you don't do something now, look what will happen, or look, it doesn't matter what the thought is, or who I think I am, or this is silly or foolish, or it doesn't matter. I'm simply pointing to the obvious, and the obvious is that right now you cannot negate present experience or experience itself, and it's not you who's having the experience. That's what I have to always be very conscious when I'm talking about this. Notice that life is simply being. Okay, notice the experience right now. Just don't identify with any thoughts. Let them be. They can be there, they can stay for as long as they want. It doesn't matter. We're not fighting thoughts, we're just simply seeing through the illusory aspect of them. Even if it's physical pain or physical sensation, let's put it this way, you can see the sensation, don't let the mind interpret the sensation, and there's no problem. You let the mind interpret the sensation, and that's a problem. And the interpretation is a thought, which is what I'm inviting you to don't identify with. Just simply be right now, right this moment. You see? Notice if even in the midst of whatever may be happening in your life, notice the peace, of course, which is refers to as the peace that passes all understanding, you see. Notice if you can get in touch with that peace. You don't want to change anything. I just want you to simply be. Just be. Okay? Can you see that there's a let's not even use the word peace. Let's use another word. A neutrality. A sense of neutrality. See? That sense of neutrality is not apathy, is not resignation, because then that is an interpretation. You see, apathy, resignation, and all of that, these are interpretations of the present moment experience. This is not as it should be, or I feel this way, whatever. No, no, no. This is your neutrality, a sense of neutrality. Notice if you can experience that. You see? Can you notice that there's a neutrality to it? I hope you can experience, because it's just the natural, it's your beingness. I mean, what could it be? Even if nothing has changed in your world, nothing has to change in your world or in your life or anything, just notice that there's a neutrality. You see, it's a beingness, right? See, that is much in accordance to what we're pointing to here. That's the nature of your being, and that never changes. That is always ever present. That's life itself. That's the energy field. That's life itself, in which everything seems to appear or disappear. That'll be the fourth book of the series. I am, in which everything seems to appear and disappear. You see? This is it. This is it. That's what we're pointing to. This is very simple. Until the mind said, yeah, but I want something different. But again, who is the one that wants something different? See, we don't want to stay on the surface. We have to always go to the core, to that first thought that says, I am an individual. You say you're an individual because there's a thought that is telling you so. Without the thought, you simply are. Okay, so rest in this I amness. Just be, you see. Have your life changed at all? Have anything in your world have changed at all? Even the physical sensation may not have changed. But notice that you are. You see? See how simple this is? This is the nature of your beingness always. So now resting in that which is, you see, is just pure beingness. You see? This is where we're pointing to. Notice? This is it. Well, this is the happiness that I'm talking about. You see how the happiness doesn't change? You see how the peace doesn't change? The circumstances may change. Sensations change. Feelings, sensations, thoughts, everything change. But you are. You see? And this is what we're pointing to. This is not a negation of life. This is not pretending that feelings are not there. This is not suppressing anything. This is just this is the obvious. This is what is. The challenge is that because there's an identification with the sense of identity, which are just thoughts, this is overlooked, because the sense of identity is always chasing for the next thing, even chasing to awaken, even chasing illumination, chasing all sorts of ideas that it has conjured up, overlooking that at all times I am. You see? For many years, when I was trying to, I don't know, have a better version of myself, I was just fueling that very same belief, which it was the obstacle of what I am. And then when I began to have those experiences where life seemed to be challenging, but in reality, life has never been challenging for me. I just been having different experiences, different textures, different forms. And the mind is the one who would say, this is a challenge, this is a problem. But then, you know, in that night when I was in the midst of all that pain, it became crystal clear. This is it. This is life. This is it. You see? And the experience right now that it seems to be comfortable when I'm in good health and I can go do things that I do, is no different than that night when I was dealing with all that pain. No different whatsoever. In the form may be different, but not in the content. And again, if you haven't watched this, I have a video when I had the operation. The day after the operation, it's in Spanish, but I did a translation to English. I'll put the link right here at the bottom so you can see it. When I'm talking about, there I am in the hospital attached to tubes and all that kind of stuff, and I find myself, well, live through this instrument, find itself recording a video saying, you probably think that your life is better than mine. And in reality, your life is not better than mine, assuming that you're in a park and having a great time with your family. Your life is not better than mine. May be different in the appearance, but it's no different in the essence of what is. And therefore, I am as happy as you are, even though you seem to be distracted with all the pleasures and I seem to be here dealing with this particular situation. But in reality, the mind that is not identified, when there's no identification with the mind's interpretation of the situation, I simply am, and so are you. You see? So the fact is that right now you are, and I was inviting you to notice it, to experience it, so you can see that that is not an experience that you have or you will have. That is your ever-present experiencing. That's what you are always, except when it's overshadowed by some kind of an interpretation, by a thought, whatever the case may be. If you don't believe the content of the mind, you're resting in beingness, and that is what you are all the time. And if you truly desire that more than anything else, again, because that's what life is doing through you, and you see that your whole world seems to crumble, and the things that you so much wanted are sort of taken away, life is not taking anything away from you. It's removing the obstacles so you can finally see the truth of what you are, and that's how you realize that you are happy. You always be happy, and you have always been happy. You are peace, you're always at peace, and you will always be peace. And once that recognition, it's really seen. Well, yeah, you can still have all the toys and all the things that you before had or you wanted. Many of them you may not even want them anymore because they don't have any sense, again. So it's not you're going to lose anything. Remember, obstacles are removed. Once they are seen for what they are, they can come back into your life, but they don't come as obstacles. They just simply come as experiences. That's all. You don't need, and a lot of things that you thought that you needed, because you don't need them anymore, you just let them go. What would be the point of holding on to something that is dragging me when actually I can be free? You see? That's what I mean. Because now you begin to appreciate what is important. And the only thing that is important, according to the videos that life is asking me to do, or I find myself doing for whatever the reason is, the only thing that is important is peace. Is the recognition that I am. You see? That to me, that's the only thing that matters. Whether I am on a street or I am in a mansion, who cares? I usually say that you take a little baby or take a child, it doesn't matter, and you take him to a mansion and he plays with the toys. You take him to a place where there's a lot of garbage and he plays with the garbage. He finds a way to entertain himself. I'll give you an example. Remember when you were a kid, at least I can remember this, that the greatest, the thing that I had the most fun is when they had either, bring a refrigerator or a washing machine to the house. You know why? Because they come in a big box. And I used to put the box of the refrigerator next to the box to the washing machine, you know, because it's bigger in size. I put them together. I just make a hole in between, and that's my apartment. I put it in the patio, and I was having a great time. And I was not comparing that to some kind of a mansion in Hawaii. I was having the time of my life. Well, because the mind was not, let's say, distracted with the thought system that says this is good, this is bad, in the regards to this is better, this is worse. No, it's all the same thing. We're playing. It's a game. Well, we're bringing back to the recognition that this is all a game. We're not taking it seriously when we don't begin to hold on to the things that we so much value. Nothing here has any value. The only thing that is truly valuable is the peace in which you rest, the happiness that you are, that has been overshadowed by what we think is valuable. And we pursue those things at the expense of our health, at the expense of hurting other people, at the expense of just walking on top of anything, doing whatever it takes to get that, and overlooking all the time that what I want really is not what I think, it's not the thing, it's what I think I'm gonna feel when I get the thing, or when I don't know, become something, and overlooking all the time that the fact that I am. There's nothing I need to do to become anything. Nothing needs to change for me to experience, for you to experience the peace, the happiness that you are. So right now, as you see that life simply is, and this become crystal clear, you have discovered what you've been looking your whole life, which is the happiness, the peace that you are. That it was simply covered by all the distractions, and life was simply doing you a favor. It was giving you the opportunity to experience a happiness that is beyond you can possibly comprehend, which is the peace in which you're resting right now, that is simply overlooked because there's distractions, and life is simply removing the obstacles so you can see who or what you really are. Well, this is the inspiration that came through this instrument. I hope it served, and as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can be extended.